Welcome, everyone, to today's conversation in the 100 Women to Watch series. As you know, this is a visibility series for, women who are having impactful leadership conversations. And what that looks like is actually different in different circles. So this is what it looks like today. Today, it got inspired by a conversation that Lorna and I had behind the scenes. And Lorna suggested that we bring up this topic, have a conversation around it, and really look at what it means for the people who are in this room today. By the way, if you're watching this, you're in this room. We can see your comments. If you're live with us on social media, please feel free to comment. We'll bring you into the conversation. And thank you so much for being here. So, Lorna, can you talk to us about today's topic, what it means to you, and why it's relevant today?
I could probably spend the next hour in talking about the relevance of acknowledging the obstacles in your life. I won't do that because I'm sure you want to hear from others around the topic. But I think there is no one in the world at this time that would say that there aren't obstacles, whether we look at them from a personal perspective, a familiar perspective, or even larger than that, community, state, nation, and so forth. And if we think about all those different parts of our experience and the extent to which obstacles can definitely be present, um, one would wonder how it is that we as human beings at this time are functioning. If you think about it, every day, every single day, especially here in the United States, and we know that there are going on in other nations, that there is just a plethora, a constant situation in which we are being just knocked down with so many obstacles. So when thinking about this, I thought about the difference between acknowledging and buying into our obstacles, because I think that this is a very different type of way of thinking about things, and not necessarily buying into the obstacles that we may face, whether it is in the personal level, the familiar level, the community, and so on. And I thought that it would be wonderful to bring on a number of my colleagues, that colleagues and sisters, if I may call them that, that may that I feel are part of my safety net, my network, when I'm dealing with obstacles. And that there are many times when I'm dealing with obstacles that I will contact them, and they will help me reframe and help me with support, loving support, I would say, when I'm going through any particular thing. And I think their particular background and experience would be enormously helpful for others to hear. Others such as myself, and maybe others that are out there in StreamYard and Facebook, that how do we go about managing the obstacles in our life? And are there strategies? Are there helpful advice? Is there a way in which we can move away some of the obstacles in our path?
That's a great way to frame how it is that we can move the conversation forward. And what it's bringing up for me, Lorna, as I'm listening to you, is sometimes obstacles, maybe they are meant, to be there for a reason or a season, and maybe they're moved immediately, maybe they're not. I'm curious what it means, and we can just open this question up to everyone. What does it look like to acknowledge an obstacle for you personally? And anyone can jump in here.
Well, I'm going to be shamelessly advertising, but those of you that have had the opportunity to hear about my best-selling book, Straight Talk from a Wise Woman: Tears, Trauma, and a Healing Path. Now, what led to the writing of this book, some would say, was an obstacle. Definitely. The obstacle in that case was the just the cascading, the building effect of many of the traumas that I experienced, both, as I said before, personal, familiar, community, and so forth. And what tipped the bucket, if you want to see me as a kind of worn brown bucket, what tipped the bucket was the murder of George Floyd, whose anniversary, by the way, has come up recently. So, what I would say is, in that particular circumstance, it was definitely an obstacle. I know I was suffering from complex trauma. I was numb. I was not sleeping well. I had repeated visions of the eyes of Derek Chauvin, who is the police officer that murdered George Floyd. So in that case, as you say, Kai, an obstacle was not necessarily an obstacle, but it was an enabler, for lack of a better term. You know, enabling has such negative concepts, but it was something that pushed me to do something that eventually was helpful to others.
And thank you so much for doing that. I mean, there are lots of maybe internal struggles or, things that we go through that we want to protect ourselves from, or even others. So thank you for allowing the bucket to tip and for your story to spill out so eloquently and elegantly in the form of a book. And let's tap into some of this collegiate power that we have here. Jennifer, would you like to share what it looks like for you to acknowledge an obstacle, or maybe even comment on why people often hide their struggles?
I think in the context of this conversation, what I feel called to speak on perhaps might be some of the circumstances that brought me into Lorna's orbit. And I think I should say that she and I collaborated on Straight Talk from a Wise Woman. I had the extreme privilege of helping edit her book, and this has to do with obstacles, because when I met Lorna, I was at a point in my life. I was living very far away from community. I was living overseas. I was very much struggling financially. I was feeling very alone and isolated. I was doing a lot of academic work, but I was feeling very disconnected from that work. So I was poor. I think around the time when I first met Lorna, I was living off of 50 euros a month, which is about 50 US dollars. I was very far away from my family, had very few networks, very few friends. And I was working on academic topics related to issues around anti-racist work, which was something I had been trained in academically. But it felt very theoretical and very, very much, sort of divorced from any real world context. Through an old friend of mine, I was put into touch with Lorna as a freelance contract worker. And Lorna at that time was working on a book proposal to propose what eventually became Straight Talk from a Wise Woman. And essentially, through work on this proposal, Lorna and I met. And what developed in this moment for me, which, I mean, I was poor, I was lonely, I was struggling to connect my core values around creative expression, community, anti-racist work. I was struggling to connect that to anything tangible right? I met Lorna, and from this, we developed a friendship, a creative collaboration that 5 years later led to this really powerful piece of creative work that she's been able to bring into the world. And, I would say that throughout that process, it wasn't easy, right? We had moments when we were not able to work on this project. Lorna got really ill with COVID at one point. In fact, she struggled with long COVID during the creation of this book, and that was certainly an obstacle.
Yes.
During the writing of the book, I was going through several major life transitions. I moved back to the United States. I got married. My husband got really ill. I was diagnosed with a heart condition. A lot of things happened. Um, and yet, through all of these different obstacles, starting from the very difficult condition under which I met Lorna, through that struggle, we were able to find community in each other. We were able to find collaboration through each other. I was able to connect, to find some connection to these abstract ideas that I knew were powerful, but I was looking for a way to connect them to something real. I was able to do that, to connect this in service to Lorna's ideas, to her story. And we were able to work together to bring these ideas into the world. And I think it's a really powerful um, example of what happens when you do have obstacles, how you can acknowledge them and how you can use community and the people around you to overcome them. And for me, it's also about the power of creative expression, not always about overcoming the obstacles, but as a way through them.
Yes. Yes. Well said.
So I hope I didn't take up too much time.
Mhm. No.
It's incredible. Thank you for weaving in your personal story and what it looked like in your life during that time. To give it some context has a lot of meaning. Absolutely.
Yes. I'm sure both Sandra, thank you so much for coming, and Ivory will chime in because we are, if I may say so, spiritual practitioners. And we found that in the course of our studies and increasing our abilities, that there seemed to be a lack of acknowledgement and a lack of inclusion, for lack of a better term, of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the whole spiritual practitioner narrative. Whether it's the history, whether it's the actual practice, whether it's the understanding of the practice. And so in 2017, I decided to give birth yet again to an organization called Mediums of African Ancestry. And both Sandra and Ivory are key members, and Jennifer's in it too. I forgot. Um, they are key members in our diverse learning community. It is totally diverse. We do believe that humanity began in Africa, and therefore all of us have a relationship to Africa, including an ancestry. And I recently posted, I don't know if you guys saw it, that through research of our DNA, it found that we all have this genetic proclivity to Eve, who was a Black African individual. So I don't know, Ivory and Sandra, if you want to chime in around that obstacle, because it was definitely, and it continues to be, an obstacle in spiritual practices.
Yeah, I mean, I can the acknowledging obstacles in life in general. And thank y'all for having me here. Thank you, Miss Lorna. I have to call you Miss because I see you as an elder and I'm so grateful that you're in my life and I just can't let go of the Miss part. So I have to always do it. But I'm really honored to be in this space. And when you asked this question initially, I immediately thought about my own childhood and having spent 17 years in foster care. And I think some people's survival responses are just being present And so being present with where you are in the moment and what is really happening around you. And you can tap into your five senses. There's a lot of different exercises that you can walk through to ground yourself in the moment. But being present, I think, is a way to acknowledge obstacles. When we think about spirituality in the context of spiritualism and the spiritual communities that we operate, I think there can sometimes be toxic positivity, if you will, or we can have shame or guilt around even acknowledging our obstacles because we're not being optimistic enough, or we're not manifesting enough, or we're not aligned enough, or we haven't meditated long enough. And when we really deconstruct those, which are derived from white supremacy and white dominant culture, I don't hold back, y'all. So, if I make enemies, you can fight me after this. But we have to be really honest about where some of our beliefs come and some of our experiences come from. And guilt and shame, those are not of God, those are not of spirit, those are not natural to who we are as human beings. So, really being present and then being aware and having the willingness to interrogate yourself. So now that I'm grounded, now that I'm present in this moment, what am I experiencing? Um, and then one thing I want to highlight for our audience is also being grounded in your gratitude. And so, as someone who spent 17 years in foster care, and when I wasn't in foster care, I was living in poverty. So, I didn't have clean clothes, I didn't have food to eat, I didn't have a safe environment, I didn't have a father. But there were things that I could be grateful for. I could walk on my own. Not everyone can walk. I could feed myself. I could breathe. I could read. I can write. As an adult now, even though I have a chronic illness, at least I have access to, medical insurance. At least I have access to knowledge as to how to take care of myself well. At least I have access to a community of people struggling with the same chronic illness. There's always a silver lining. There's always something to be grounded in gratitude. And I believe there's studies that support and show that gratitude is a really big resilience factor when experiencing adversity. So I would say, a way to acknowledge life's obstacles is to be present and then have awareness around that, and orient yourself in gratitude. But taking it back to spirituality, there is an incredible lack of diversity, not even just racially, but socioeconomically. I would say intergenerationally. There are so many people missing from the conversations that we find ourselves in, and a lot of the spaces that we are in. And that's one of the reasons why I'm continuing to try to show up, even though I have 8,000 things going on. So I'll pass it over to Sandra. I'm sure you have some gems to share with us.
Invited me to be here. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Like, you're all really powerful women, and that's what we need in our world right now. So, because changes are not going to come from those who are in a privileged situation. So we women need to help each other, and minorities need to help each other, etc. So when it comes to my experience, like, one of the main obstacles that I faced in my life was, first of all, being a woman in this patriarchal society. And second, being a minority when I immigrated to the United States. When I lived in Brazil, I didn't understand, I didn't think I was racist. And until I moved to the United States, where I understood the different layers of what means being a minority, and what are the things that I have assimilated without realizing that I was somehow leading me to ignore the pain of others because I didn't have that dimension in my own life. So so that led me to, like, through the work with my patients in my psychology clinic, my work, spiritual work, and my personal growth, internal work, led me to learn so much about myself, about our collective struggles, and how much we still have a long way to go in terms of learning how to overcome those obstacles and how to become who we are, because those layers of false beliefs, distorted, biased values that we assimilate from an imperfect society, is somehow we internalize as truth, and we ingrain in our own personality, and creates, like Ivory said, sometimes creates shame, creates confusion, creates low self-esteem, creates dispowerment, and deflation over what we can contribute to society because of that. So an example of that, like I come from Brazil, and even though São Paulo, where I grew up, is theoretically very progressive, but because of current politics, not current, like recent politics, which we are seeing all over the world, like very extreme right and stuff, we have suffered that in Brazil as well, and that gave the highlight for the stage for those who have those really outdated values to voice their opinions without shame. So we have recently a minister, an environmental minister, who is doing an excellent job, Marina Silva. She is fearless and protecting the environment and doing so many changes that we need in Brazil, recovering all the destruction from the Amazon, etc., protecting the indigenous. One day, like in a meeting with other parliamentarians and senators and everything, very chauvinistic senator shouted in her face that she should go to her place. She should stop talking and go to her place, meaning that a woman's place is not in a leadership. So it was like so shocking. Like I felt that it was like in this, 1600. That's what is going on. So we are still dealing with this kind of thing underneath the rug or in the surface. This is pretty much what it is in the reality we face. And as minorities, like the fact that I have accent, automatically people think that I am ignorant, unintelligent, and I don't know what I do. So there's a lot of mansplaining all the time. There's a lot of considering my opinions on stuff in some contexts. Fortunately, I'm very fortunate to be surrounded with wonderful colleagues and wonderful communities and stuff. But there are some contacts from people that do not know me professionally, for me to be treated this way because of my accent. So is a reality that leads me to do more for others. So my pain, my obstacles led me to help others. I work with homeless people. I work with immigrants. I work with empowering women, with women victims of domestic violence and all sorts of things, helping women to understand. Sometimes they are in a corporate world and they don't understand they are being massacred in their career, and helping them to understand, hey, this is like, this is prejudice, this is sexism. You need to kind of be, more aware of those things and protect yourself, kind of stuff. So, and so is empowered. And if you allow me, I just want to share just a little story that is very illustrated about what we are talking about. So recently I watched a series about like the white princess and the Spanish princess. So I didn't know why I was drawn to it. But at the end of the Spanish princess, I understood why I was drawn to. I was really, called to watch that, because it gave me a perspective of what we are going through and what I'm going through and what we are all going through. So the Princess Catherine, Queen Catherine, she was a daughter of a very powerful warrior queen. Her mother was really powerful and she ruled over Spain for so many decades. And she won so many wars and she was the leader. She was incomparable with so many kings. And she was raised to be this powerful a warrior queen as well, and so and to be the bride of the King of England. So when the time came that she was at the age to be sent to England, she said, and she had that all this empowerment in on her. She was this powerful princess like her mother, and she has like really strong ideas, leadership, and really knowledgeable and stuff. But in England, she was massacred. She was treated as the women was at that time in that society, and more her power was oppressed and oppressed and oppressed, to the point that when she had several miscarriages, and you know how important it is to have an heir. And she one of the miscarriages was because she went to war and she was the one who helped England to win that war, but she was pregnant, and then she lost the baby because of the stress and stuff, and it was a boy. That baby was a boy, so she was very shamed for it. Didn't matter that she's the one who won the war. And then after that, she just had one daughter. She didn't have sons anymore, so she was shamed for not being able to give the king a son, and she was useless and all that. But that was at the end. At the beginning, she rejected her daughter because of that. She was enmeshed in that reality of chauvinism. And then after a while, she realized, okay, you are going to raise you to be a leader. And that was the breaking point in England to allow queens to take power, to lead. Her daughter which was Elizabeth, was the first queen in England. So it is like that kind of thing. So hardships are usually the breaking points in history, and that's what we need to remember.
This is a great example, Sandra. Thank you so much for sharing the story to really illustrate this point. And what it's bringing up over here is like, how can leaders in our communities even model the emotional honesty without being consumed by the pain of their past?
Well, I absolutely believe that to the extent that we can, we must have experiences that build our mind, body, physical, spiritual, and so forth bandwidth. Because I think if we're not necessarily imbued with that in our families and in our communities, where we have a strong sense of ourselves and the extent to which we are worthy, we are positive. And I even wrote a poem once, "You are perfect, you see, you are perfect." And that there is no redeemable qualities in suffering, you see, because very oftentimes we may feel suffering is something that is part of our identity or our dynamic. And one of the things that I stress is the extent to which people need to understand that happiness and feeling good about oneself is a right, is a good thing. And so when there are things coming at us that are impacting that kind of situation, that we need to be able to identify it the way it is. And thanks, Jennifer. And I was thinking when Sandra was speaking, I was thinking about all the events in my lifetime in school where I was deterred from being a great student and having the opportunity for a great career. And it just happened one time after another. And my husband of 40 odd years, every time I do something that is very healing and helpful, he will say over and over, "Oh, you should have been a doctor. Why you didn't study medicine?" Well, it's a good reason for that. I didn't study medicine because at first in elementary school, when I would say, "Oh, I wanted to be a doctor," because I had an aunt that was a doctor. So at first they said, "Oh, you can't be a doctor. Study something that is going to help you to make money, like marketing and different things like that." And so when I said it again in junior high school and towards high school, yeah, again they said, "Oh no, you can't be a doctor because you're not smart enough, and there are not a lot of women that are doctors." And then in high school, the guiding counselor, instead of guiding me to 4-year colleges and so forth, because I certainly had the grades for it, he said, "Oh no, you have to go to a community college. That's about the best you could do because I said so." So, and then it didn't end. So in graduate school, finally, when I decided to be kind of a doctor, I think, Sandra, wouldn't you agree that, we in our work with our patients, we're kind of doctors. So finally in graduate school, in my, I think it was the second half of my first year in graduate school with a very prestigious university, one of my teachers stood over me with her hand in my face, and she said, "You will never be a social worker. You are intuitive, and intuitive people in our work are no good. And I will let you know you will never be a social worker. And also, I want you to know you people can't write." So imagine that kind of obstacle and the power that this woman has as a professor. Uh, and I was so shocked that she said anything. I decided that I wouldn't say anything. But what I'm trying to put forward here is the idea that for many people, and it's not only Black, Indigenous, and people of color, but it's other people as well. When we look back in our lives and begin to examine some of the things that were some of the obstacles that were in our path, and the extent to which someone else said it in the group, that we have worked productively, that we have recognized these obstacles for what they were or what they are. But at the same time, and I want to emphasize this, especially to our audience, is the essential thing that we must have an inner world that is strong. We need to have an inner world where we're inculcated with the sense of our value and the sense that suffering is not something that is part of our DNA, and the extent to which we need to be able to feel good about ourselves, whatever our color, our hair texture, our bodies, that there is something beautiful and something positive within us that is God sent, if you, or goddess sent, however you want to see it. And I think if we're not imbuing that within ourselves, and we need it along our developmental phases where we're a child, an adolescent, a young adult, a middle-aged person, and senior citizens, especially in a sense, as I enjoy senior citizenhood, that we must constantly imbue ourselves, because if you think about it as darts that are often just thrown at us in all sorts of different things. I'm often standing at a cashier and ready to pay my money, and somebody comes up right in front of me from nowhere and just acts like I'm invisible. It's a dark. It's a way that is meant to demean us and place us in a place of invisibility.
Thank you. Lorna, also for the way that you illustrated that, just makes it that much more tangible to understand the experience, of being in a situation like that. So I appreciate your words. And we are getting close to the top of the hour. What I would like to do is to dive into a personal question for each of us that's here. And that question is, what advice would you give someone who is currently in the middle of a breakdown moment and can't see the light ahead? And here's an option. If perhaps you could go back and whisper one message to yourself at your lowest moment, what would it be and why? And if you could accompany that with where people can find you on the internet and how they can connect with you, that would be fantastic. Sandra, would you like to lead us off? What would you whisper to yourself at your lowest moment, and where can people find you?
I think I would say my place, I would advise you to tell yourself, my place in the world was not given by others, was given from God. So this is something that when I understood, it was very powerful to help me to protect myself from any kind of biases, any kind of things, agendas that would cut my power. And because that leads us to kind of look for self-knowledge, look for introspection, to find your power inside of you and find your power in a collective. So that's the key, I would say, to regain yourself and regain your center. Self-knowledge and understanding that you are part of the collective and you have a mission. You have a special mission that nobody else can fulfill. So you are important and irreplaceable. So you can find me through Facebook. I have a page, Psychologist, where I discuss things about psychology and share things. You can find me there, or you can find me through my website, sandraferreira.com. And thank you so much, guys, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Jennifer, would you like to follow Sandra?
It's so tough to to follow any of these women after they speak, especially because the nature of some of our obstacles have been very different, I think. If I could go back to some of the lowest points in my life, and these are conversations I have been able to explore in therapeutic scenarios, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to later on in life had the privilege to do this work in therapeutic, in spiritual, also in some spiritual work that I've done so holistically, right? There's just some really basic things I would tell that person who was sad, who was self-destructive, who was abusing different kinds of substances because she had such low self-worth, right? I wish that I could go back and I could just hold her. I think she was someone who needed, more physical affection. I would hold her and I would just tell her, honey, it's going to be okay. You're beautiful. You're beautiful the way you are. You're going to be okay. And you have to trust the process. When I work with my students, we always focus on process, not product. And I wish I could kind of give some of that advice to myself in those darker moments, like whatever the product was at the time, some version of myself, some version of myself that I was punishing myself for not being, like, some version of a misogynistic capitalist world, that I felt I was not living up to. Like, just trust this process, and you're beautiful the way you are, and it's going to be okay, and you're going to be fine. Trust that it's going to be okay. And it sounds very simple. I know it's not really as powerful as what Sandra just said, but I do think it's probably something I could have benefited from hearing at the time, and just that hug. I'm on Instagram. I'm at Jennifer Reimer. I'm on LinkedIn under Jennifer Reimer. I'm on Facebook under Jennifer Andrea. It's my middle name. It's because sometimes I hide from my students, and I would love to connect with anyone out there. I'm a creative writer, and if you ever want to talk about poetry, I'm a teacher. I'm an academic. I write about race. I write about migration, and I write about collaboration and feminist and anti-racist work on all those different platforms. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to talk about those things, Jennifer. Thank you for bringing them up and for being here. Absolutely. Ivory, would you like to share with us from your perspective?
Sure, it's going to sound really cheesy, but I've learned that some of the most important things in life come across as such. I think when I was at my lowest, one caveat, because I don't want people to feel delusional, especially younger people, we can give them these fantastical perspectives that can be disappointing, is that the more you go through life, the lower things can get. But at the same time, you become a stronger person. You pick up more tools and more coping mechanisms. And I like to think of my personal life as like a mountain. It doesn't go straight up. It has its peaks and valleys along the ways, but it has continued to elevate. And so at my lowest, I would say to look up. You can't go down any further. The sun is above you. Possibilities are above you. Every step that you take is going to get you closer to something better. And so you just have to look up. You have to orient towards the things that you do have to be grateful for. Give yourself goals to accomplish and to move towards, even in the smallest capacities. And you just have to keep living, as uninspiring as that sounds. As long as you're trying your best, you have to keep living. And that's all I have right now. But that's only 35 years in. So maybe this will be a different conversation in a few decades. You can find me on Instagram, social media, LinkedIn. Ivory Bennett is my name. That's where I am. You can find the work that I do on Youth Voices Rising through fostering media connections. If you'd like me to speak or work with your youth with lived child welfare experience. And I was laughing when you said, Jennifer, you used to hide from your students, because I also used to hide from my students when I was a teacher on social media. So thank you all for having me here again. Thank you, Ms. Lorna, for your wonderful words of wisdom. And I'll hop off.
Thank you for speaking possibility over us today. Ivory, much appreciated. Lorna, will you kindly share your perspective and also speak to to the panel and those watching? How do you feel about how all of this turned out?
Oh, I feel wonderful. I absolutely. It's been a natural, for lack of a, I'm going to say aphrodisiac, but not in a sexual sense, not at all. In a sense of passion, in a sense of renewal, in a wonderful sense of being together in community and having the opportunity to share our perspectives, because as you know, we're all over the United States, and we really as a group come together, and I'm feeling the opportunity for another birthing of a book, lady. So just think about it. Can you imagine? And it doesn't have to be long, maybe 5-6 chapters around acknowledging obstacles in your life journey. And can it be a primer, perhaps, for young people who may be struggling with some of these issues? So I'll just throw that out there, and you tell me what you think. But I do want to just build on everything that has been said thus far. You all are brilliant. And your perspective that you shared today is absolutely, it's just pristine. It's just lovely. And so if I had the opportunity to talk to myself at some of my lowest moment, I would have said, and yes, Jennifer, like my poem, you are perfect. You are perfect, just the way you are. And in part, the reason that you are perfect, and I'm going to build on Sandra, is that we all have the God force within us. God, goddess, whatever is the thing in your life that you feel is important. And if that God force is something that you really believe is inside of you, then you cannot be mistaken. You cannot be ugly. You can't be horrible. You are perfect. So that's what I would say to myself. And if you need to reach me, dear friends, I'm on also Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. In fact, I'm doing some reels on Instagram that you might want to listen to. And on the website, if you like, www.lornajhines.com. And on that, you'll be able to read about some things that I'm doing, as well as get in touch with me. And I welcome the opportunity to speak with people that perhaps are struggling in some way.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. It was a really special experience to tap into what struggle means without having to be consumed by it, and also to be met with such care, such compassion. Just the way that you were all sharing about it also helped, I'm sure, someone who was listening today, if not someone who is here on the stage or in this room with us live. So thank you, each of you, for contributing your voice and your wisdom and your presence today. And for everyone who is watching, please feel free to connect with each of these amazing women who are contributing their voice in more than one way to this conversation, and also to our larger conversation in the 100 Women to Watch campaign. You're welcome to join us here. You're welcome to join the movement yourself, and also to continue the conversation in the watch party. So everyone, take these golden words of wisdom, and please feel free to share them as well if you feel that they've had an impact for you. Okay, everyone, bye for now, and see you in the next conversation.